Hi, and welcome to Decoding AQ, helping you to learn the tools, mindsets, and actions to thrive in an ever-changing world.
Hi, and welcome to my first episode recording of 2025. And I'm delighted to welcome Lisa Hammond. She is the Chief Human Resource Officer at Veradigm. I hope I pronounced that correctly.
Yeah.
And she's a visionary leader with over 2 decades of experience in HR and organizational strategy. She's had key roles at Blockbusters, Samsung, and many hospitality giants. With this rich history of driving transformative change in dynamic environments, from leading M&A initiatives to fostering leadership development and optimizing talent acquisition strategies. So she has a passion for creating people-centered organizations and anchoring her work as a coach, advisor, and executive leader. So welcome to the show, Lisa.
Thank you so much, Ross, for the opportunity. Happy New Year. I hope you had a wonderful New Year's Day yesterday.
Well, yesterday, in fact, it was pouring with rain. So I decided I did the dog walk, and Karen, my wife, took down the Christmas decorations yesterday. So we're all sorted and ready for the new year. So yeah, how about you? How was your uh, closing out to 24?
It was great. And yesterday was spent outside here in North Carolina, where it was a lovely, crisp day, with some winter tennis, dog walking like you. And I'm 55% done with de-holidaying the house. So I'm a day behind you.
Well, we were for the first time in we've been together 20 years, and we normally are the last to get the Christmas tree. You know, we get the last one from the garden centre. We had it on the 1st of December. I don't know what was going on last year, but we were on it. We were on it.
We're exceeding your own expectations. That's
Yeah.
really fun, right? You'll remember that
Who
next
knows? Who
year.
knows? So where I'd like to start off is perhaps rewinding the clock and understanding perhaps how you might connect your own dots in the journey that took you from a degree in criminal justice and political science into the HR world. Connect some dots for me, Lisa.
I will, and my colleagues joke I can be unfiltered, so you get the unfiltered version, because it's somewhat relatable to people that maybe don't exactly know where their path is in life at the beginning. And I went to college. I did all the things and extra, all the stuff. And I met someone at the end of college, and I, decided to follow them for a bit instead of pursuing law school, which my parents were exceedingly thrilled with all those choices, as you can imagine. And that all didn't work out that well. But I was in retail at the time, part-time, while I was going to a graduate certificate program. And I had worked in restaurants since I had a work permit at 15 and had worked in restaurants. And so I loved the engagement and the sale and all of the pieces. And so I pursued that, and then parallel moved to another city where I got a job as a legal assistant and learned quite a bit about workers' compensation law. And then a really amazing defense firm called Littler. It used to be Littler Mendelson, and they're global. And I worked for them for a number of years as a paralegal, did mostly Title VII and OSHA cases, and sort of sat up one day and said, what the heck? This is horrible. These employers that we defend are spending all this money. What would it look like to be over there on the other side of the fence? And so I got this amazing, amazing job as a HR director with zero experience at a .com, because that's when it was. And that lasted 4 whole exciting and terrifying months, when there were some nefarious and unfortunate things happening to money. And I really needed to get a new job very fast, and landed at Pizza Hut. And the path was just kind of there, and it was cloudy for years and amazing and awesome. And I had some jumps because I wasn't afraid to take a couple risks. And I thought, A lot of people I would get hired and the company would sell or reorg or merge or get acquired or something. And then my old bosses would call me back. So it was kind of a series of where I was sort of working for the same group of people for a number of years in different companies. And that's really how it happened. I landed in HR sort of happenstance out of a desire to maybe figure out why people spent so much on labor attorneys when things went bad. And now I know that that's inevitable and it's okay. And it does not mean anything's wrong with your company or your labor practices. It's just that's the nature of the beast now. That's how it happened for me. And I worked actually a couple jobs in retail during the time I was paralegal as well to make extra money. I was single and trying to build a life, and it was awesome. And I landed a couple key roles later on. Samsung was probably a big catapult for me getting to a VP role at a family restaurant business, and then moving to Veradigm, which has just been amazing.
And you've expressed before about how perhaps some of that grounding in hospitality has shaped some of your thinking, shaped some of the way in which you focus on, a role in HR, in leadership, in supporting people. Tell me a little bit more about that.
It's so key. It's interesting. There's kind of two facets to it. One is that when you're in a retail or restaurant environment, um, many people think of it as transactional. You're just creating a transaction. I want a beer, you give me a beer, I tip you, we move on with our lives, and the next day somebody else serves me a beer, or vice versa. And really, that experience is not so much about that. It's about building relationships, and you're doing it transactionally. Maybe it's the easy way to think about it, but it's the same thing in HR. We're building relationships every day. We're building places where people want to invest, right? Whether you're in retail and you've created a relationship that makes them come back and buy from your brand or your store, or you're doing it as a coach, advisor, even in employee relations. Sometimes you are building what may be a bad situation for an employee if they're treated with respect and with that servant leadership mentality. Even if they're in the wrong, it's an opportunity for them to learn and grow, and it builds a relationship for them to come back. And it's really the people that live and breathe hospitality in their life and in their careers are a really different breed. The tolerance level for what other humans do to each other, to you in that role is eye-opening. The types of infractions that happen in those four-wall environments are very different to maybe a stereotypical white-collar environment. And it really, as an HR person, and I've been lucky enough to have operations roles and other support roles as well, it makes you much more aware and tuned in to be able to handle things that maybe mushroom bigger than you expected. You just sort of have this understand a little bit different understanding of human nature and how things transpire, and then what is truly catastrophic, right? What I thought was catastrophic in life, but I've been in that business for so long, compared to what people maybe once I moved to Samsung and then came back to more of a technology background with Veradigm was so different. I'm thinking, okay, no, this is not a crisis. We can work through this. Let's ask some smart questions, get to root cause. You know, had a restaurant that had like 2 or 3 outbreaks of salmonella in the same building over the course of 3 months. To me, that was epically catastrophic, versus 2 managers that are arguing over who owns the intellectual property over something. Is not. It's a serious issue, but nobody's actually dying from it. So it kind of changed your perspective a little bit.
So it's interesting when I was listening there, is it a case of it affects our tolerance levels in terms of what's acceptable, what's not acceptable, and then how that influences perspective of what matters or doesn't matter? And surely that's a personal element.
It's such a personal element, and it's not to say that everyone's experience is unique to them and shapes them. So it's not saying, oh, well, I have this life or this career and that's made me tougher or stronger than someone else. It absolutely doesn't. I do think, however, it adds a component to your makeup, that it just gives you like a little bit of this light coating over you where things might slide away a little bit easier. And you hear a lot of business leaders and CEOs that have been in retail hospitality and people that are in management levels say, you always hear a version of the Gap story. You haven't really lived till you folded a t-shirt kind of thing. And I think for me, that has held extremely true because you're right. You just sort of have this different nuanced perspective. And some of it likely has a percentage of being a paralegal a long time ago in a labor firm where I saw, what happens if you don't have good practices, you don't do this. And so it does make you alternately more annoying and more tolerant at the same time because the annoying side of you is like, okay, this is what happens if you don't do the SOP. Same in a restaurant, like if SOP was followed to the letter, maybe or maybe not, this it would have happened anyway, my issue in the restaurant. But it just makes you see things so sharply and differently. And I think sometimes it gives you the ability to pull back and maybe support a little bit differently without getting tied up too much in your own feelings about it, which I think's helped me in terms of being an advisor or a coach in an organization where you kind of see past the immediate crisis and say, well, there's life after this, and we're going to figure out how to navigate this the best way possible.
It, it's interesting, isn't it? This sort of almost duality of being
Yeah.
able to have tolerance, let things slide, compassion and understanding, and also catch it in the moment, deal with it so it doesn't become an issue. And how do we balance those two things, right? That sense of going, okay, was the SOP followed? Do I need to get this critically dealt with so it doesn't become a massive issue? Or if I just let it slide, does it then go, damn, should have dealt with that a long time ago because it's now manifested into something that it shouldn't. And that's a constant duality of life, isn't it?
And it's so interesting you talk about the duality, and I think about what was the way that you would, how would I have dealt with this years ago before I had all this, the repetitive injuries, as you joke of all the things that happen. And it's funny because sometimes you go outside, sometimes you stand outside the restaurant and you're just standing there by yourself talking to no one so that you can just say, this is so ridiculous. I can't believe it. You have that moment. You do the same thing in the office as well, where sometimes you just need to have what I call a red card, and your real soccer, as we would say, and be able to vent and have that moment, and then you just come back and center yourself. But no one's immune from the triggers, and I think it helps you with that duality. It's like you have to step back and absorb it. That if something has completely ridiculous happened, I do try to ground myself before I go to my team and lose my noodle or do something silly, because we all have to be, you got to be focused, especially if it's a wider organizational impact. You can't be, with the face on this, especially since COVID. You're just right there on the camera.
And I think it's an interesting time of the year when you're starting a new year and you're looking out and you're thinking about, okay, what does this year ahead look like? What do I want it to look like? What are some of the dangers? What are some of the challenges we might be facing? What are some of these opportunities we might have? Technological ones, geographical ones, market, political background, context that's going on. I'd like to just spend a bit of time going through a process that I learned through my coach, a chap called Dan Sullivan, called DOS. And it's a bit like a SWOT of strengths, weakness, opportunities, threats. But DOS is you start with the dangers. So what are the dangers that exist? What are some of the opportunities and what are some of the strengths? And I'd love to, open about that process with you. I haven't done this before in any of the interviews.
All right.
And I'd love to,
right.
let's see, if you look ahead at this next year for you in your role and at Veradigm, what are some of the potential dangers that you see that might be equally other listeners could recognize some of those dangers particularly around future of work and how we're shaping the workforce?
Russell, I mean, I love this. I'm excited to go through this process with you for the first time. The dangers, I guess I'm looking a little externally here in the US. We do have some real concerns, regardless of what political party you're in, on how the next president is going to shape our world. Everything from immigration, birthright, to income taxes, Social Security, EEOC here in the US, Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, every single thing has been talked about as a target or a change, so there's no sense of sameness right now. I think if you're in business or you're in HR, particularly, you don't really know which way things are going to go. So I think that's a kind of overarching thing that we're all probably, well, me particularly, can't speak for others, but are thinking about. I know my team's talked about it quite a bit over the month of the holiday. And then I think for the organization that I work with, Veradigm, we're actually in what I would call dangerous times. We have a long-running audit. We have a significant amount of competitor enhancements going on in our software market. We've got people thinking about the future of the organization. And so we're sort of the confluence of those two things is about to happen here on probably Monday, when we all show back up for the start of the new year. And I think for me, it means, what is my role in helping the organization navigate these challenges? And the navigation really ends up at the CEO's office and the board of directors, right? And then underneath that is those of us that really have to help steer the ship. And I do rowing as my workout. And you think about a coxswain who's calling out the time and the pace. And to some extent, that's a little bit where HR is. The CEO and the leaders, we set the strategy, and then you got at the back of the boat. We've got to help keep that boat steady, keep people engaged, keep the rowers in the boat, everybody in sync, everybody excited about a win. And I think it's going to be a heavy year, I think.
And I think, certain industries at certain periods, what is the seasonality for that? And in healthcare, particularly the opportunities that technology, that data, the shifts that are providing is transforming what service looks like, how we perform every part of healthy living and our health span and extension of lifespan, and how that integrates. What are you seeing, for each individual and teams that are responsible to go, okay, we're going that way, right? We have that vision. What are some of the, challenges that you might face in that context of massive influx of, we could do so many things? Technology, emerging technologies provide so many opportunities. How do you get the clarity through that and the decisions of those leaders, and then the follow through?
It's unbelievable. In the midst of the other challenges I define, we are also doing a digital transformation internally. So we are rolling out a new HRIS, a new ERP system, new Salesforce design. So we have all of that, and that's separate and away from what our primary mission is, which is to transform people's lives through healthcare. And so it's really balancing, how do you take what is, at some point, a limited amount of people, and help them transform both internally, because internal transformation will allow us to serve our clients more effectively, right? So it's kind of this eternal kind of, Lady Justice holding the scales of which thing is more important. And I think right now we're desperately trying to keep our focus fairly even, where we are bringing some significant upgrades and enhancements this year to our largest EHR, electronic health records platform, while also using some of that intellectual capacity to have people partner for this internal transformation. And then we have AI layered underneath all of that. We made a small acquisition earlier in 2024. So we have this AI company that's really working hard, starting with our data analytics business, supporting, a number of research organizations with, we're one of the few EHRs that owns our patient records. They're obviously subject to HIPAA and everything else. So it's not, our names aren't out there, but that's fruitful, deep data for research groups and research physicians to use to help, again, transform healthcare and bring better solutions. And so all of that requires a lot of cerebral horsepower. And so it's really trying to figure out with the leaders in the business, all right, who is best suited to really continue forward here and just really drive for the clients? And then how do we marry that with sales who would like, every upgrade to be yesterday? And so we're really, from a coaching and HR perspective, it's a lot of talent management balance discussions. And it seems like it happens every day, and all the business partners every day, all the time, just really helping the people that need to coach the front line be as equipped as humanly possible. The better leaders that we can support and help them grow, that's the name of the game right now in healthcare. I mean, a bot can only do so much, and a bot is not what impacts a client or the client's patient.
Yeah.
It's the people.
And I think a lot of this also impacts about the time span that we're envisaging, right? As we've got these key shifts from AI as the diagnostician, and sort of co-pilot to always on monitoring. So the volume of data that we're now getting from wearables to all sorts of things is, where is that data collected? To how it's dealt with in terms of shifting drug discovery processes. We saw that in COVID, the speed of discovery and then implementation of some of those things, to opportunities of designer meds, N of one, and a model around me with robotics interacting there, of robotic surgeries going on. This is now, right? All integrating in pockets around the world that have these different things, and how from a place we go to, that place is now shifting of where is healthcare provided. So everyone in that supply chain, from data to technology to all sorts of, all evolving their entire service delivery and service models. So as you said, those transitions, this is a lot of opportunity and also pressure to put on people,
So much.
right?
It
To
is
put
a
on
lot.
people. Yeah.
It's so interesting too when you talk about that, just that whole, it's like this sphere of just interconnected things everywhere as it relates to AI. And I was at a conference that BetterUp, so organization here in the US, is really cutting edge in coaching and doing a lot of research. And they their psychologist did a bit about AI and being a pilot or a passenger. And I think, a lot of us are passengers or have been passengers as we sort of watched it happen on Google or whatever our search engine is. And it's interesting now that we're thinking about being a pilot, and how are we the creator of the idea, ensuring we maintain the creation of the idea, and the AI allows us maybe a little bit more freedom and elasticity in our thought process, which I think, as you were saying, for healthcare is a game changer. I mean, the speed at which they're finding off-label, now on-label, but off-label uses for drug. I mean, GLP is obviously right now, a huge example of a drug that was originally way back used for something else, is now this, earth-shattering thing. And AI makes that happen faster, but you still need the human back there really guiding and designing the process. And that's where what we talk about it at Veradigm quite a bit, is what is that balance, and how do you engage the talent in a different way, where it's not just an engineer, a machine learning engineer. It's got to be this sort of more, it's a well-rounded group, and you don't let the AI manage you've got to kind of figure out how to manage it. So it's been, for someone that is not a healthcare specialist by any means, sitting in the grandstands supporting and watching, it's an amazing time in history, really.
And I think it gives a unique aspect, when you look at the sphere of healthcare, of what's going on from traditionally tech firms that weren't in healthcare. You take Google, take Apple, take
Yeah,
these people. Some of their most profound impact is going to be in healthcare.
it's
If
healthcare.
you look at, Alpha Proteo, I did a keynote for Baxter, a big healthcare
Yeah,
organization, about this and how you can go from the requirement of thousands of R&D human professionals to do that same job with tens of human professionals, leveraging some of these technologies to be able to build a better future where we can create, digital twins of cells for drug discovery. We can create all of these things to expedite the process. So where does that leave us for this year ahead in terms of, right, we've got all this opportunity, all these great potential tools that are out there for doing things, and leaders are sat there going, hey, you've got to learn this new software, you've got to learn this new ERP, we've got this new process going on,
got all these things.
all these things that are happening, the complexities then of hybrid challenges, right? Of where do we work from? How do we hang out? How does that impact engagement? How does that impact performance and those sorts of things? So in terms of your key rocks for this year of milestones of what you're going to be focusing on, what are those and why?
It's interesting. As you were saying all that, I thought, oh, I kind of need a nap, even though it's very early in the morning here in the US. So I would say, personally, it's going to be, I have to continue to manage my balance. Not about, it's not so much work life. I look at it as just wellness in general, that I just need to maintain that healthy outlook and physical wellness, because it allows you to show up better for everybody that you engage with. And I think for me, one of the things that my team and I are talking about, and the CEO is extremely invested in, and I believe I'm not alone, is upskilling, and more upskilling. And upskilling doesn't mean that the skills we have are not great and that we're not amazing until intelligent people. It means the world around us is changing. And if we hang on to, a software that's no longer actively being used to create, you're going to fall behind. And we don't want to lose the great talent that we have, because we didn't give the opportunity for growth and development. So I would say that's probably the biggest piece of it. And then really it's about unifying people to understand what can happen, what we expect to happen, what the plan says, and what other companies have done successfully that's going to happen at the end of all this work. Because let's get real, any changes to huge software platforms, updating anything internally, all of those things are just painful, and can be tedious. So not every day is like sitting in a cohort and brainstorming and eating cookies and having a good time. But that while we're doing this, we are all learning, growing, and developing together, and we're all shaping our ability to be better colleagues, better leaders, et cetera. And at the end of it, we are so much stronger as an organization. And you know what? If it's not for you, look at what you got through, and look at the adventure you had and the skills that you gained. And that's the thing, is my other thing is, if things shift in an organization, we have to move and change with people. It's to leave them with a feeling that when they move to their next step in their career ladder, they left better than what they came in. Because I mean, it's realistic that people choose to leave, and maybe we don't have enough growth for them. But as long as they look back at the people that they work with respect, and they feel like they really got a value out of being part of our Veradigm organization, that's tantamount. And a lot of them come back later.
Yeah.
So
And like you said at the very beginning, your own journey, whilst has been in different badges on the door, it's often been with similar team members, right? Is that as people move, if you find that I like hanging out with these people, they made me a better person, right? They understand me, they develop me, and vice versa, and therefore we shift and move around in those environments. I really liked what you talked about there, Lisa, in terms of starting with this requirement of wellness. To be able to upskill, we have to be well, right? We have to have good sleep. We have to
really
have
do. And I
just,
learned it very late in life. I'll tell you,
yeah.
this was not, who I was 20 years ago. And you can't show up for other
Right.
people fully.
Yeah. And this relentless, you have to learn, we've got to do more with less. Well, actually having the space, the capacity as a human being to even learn, we have to understand the environment factors of that. What's our biochemical makeup and mental makeup, physical makeup, to ensure that we're not just throwing stuff that doesn't actually have any impact. And I think that's one of the biggest challenges, right? You see it in schools with kids where they go and you'll get 30 in the class. Some will get it, some won't get it. It's the same content, same material, but what's the difference? What's the difference between what they ate, how well they're sleeping, what
Yeah.
support they have around them? And we often overlook that opportunity of saying, right, we need fertile ground of the right environment. So starting with the wellness, then link upskilling and the art of possible. How are we expanding the horizons to make and help people see things differently, think differently, and those integration of those three pillars? I really like that. So in terms of to come to the opportunity, the strengths, what exists in the organization in order to be able to do that, to be able to give the space for wellness, to be able to drive upskilling and be able to drive the expansion of what's possible?
I think, at Veradigm, we're lucky to have a couple things. We have some pods of people that have worked together for many, many years, and have a lot of respect, and they really get it. We have some robust ERG, employee resource groups, and they really help each other cope and wellness strategies. And we just started a series. Number 2 in the series is breaking the ice and having open conversations about peri and menopause, which unheard of a few years ago. One of our board members came on and talked about her experience. Like, it was this moment of like, wow, we had all these women and a couple men join in, and we're going to do a series on that. And so we have people that are willing to do the work, I guess, if that makes sense, that they believe in Veradigm's mission for themselves and for their careers. And they also believe in themselves as a team, in an organization. There's a lot of mutual respect. And so I believe that is going to be how we push forward this year, because it's definitely a unique time for the organization. And unique and challenging, but also really interesting and exciting for them as well. So we just, there's that you got to have a shared vision.
Yeah, that shared vision, and then the encouragement and space for those people
Yeah.
that are passionate about something to have the floor. Here you go. This is a piece that's relevant. Let's talk
Yeah.
about menopause, premenopause,
Yeah.
what's going on, life stories. Let's have that experience so that we
Yeah.
can get compassion, understanding, and movement forward. So if
Yeah.
we were sat here 2nd of January 2026, what's happened in that year for you to go, that was an incredible year? I'm so proud of what I've accomplished, what we've accomplished. What would you express to me of what's happened at that point?
I think I've got a wellness challenge for myself this year, which is 3 different goals. And if I get all 3 of those, I'll be very happy in January of 2026. And that'll keep me sane and effective. Uh, and I
Does that
think
happen to start with the trip to Miami for the weekend?
to start
Time for
with
you.
Miami with my best friend of 43 years.
Wonderful.
Her father passed away recently, and I've been, poking her, you've got to step out to be able to step back in. And so we're gonna go
Mhm.
sit quietly somewhere in the sun for a few days and come back. And so then after that, it'll be a couple of half marathons and a full marathon. So that keeps me happy and balanced. So that's a good thing. But I think organizationally, there's a hard pull coming and a push as well. And for me in 2026, it would be navigating the sea of change that we have in front of us and coming out stronger. And stronger means obviously primarily for our shareholders, and for our clients and the patients that benefit from the things that we do, and for us to see the retention and growth of our associates, to see us go through what is going to be probably the hardest year in our history as a legacy company called Allscripts and now Veradigm, and be able to come out stronger for all parties at the other end of it, for
And I
sure.
think so many who are listening will probably resonate with that, of this. We know we're going to be facing even more change, opportunity, shift, and we want to grow without depletion and just complete exhaustion, right? We want to grow with health as well, right? The health of the system, that we've not got there, and we've gone, oh, I now need, a complete period of time
I
in
love the way you put
intensive
that.
care,
That's great,
right?
Russ. The health of this system.
Yeah.
I'm I'm glomming onto that one. Thank you for
And
that.
and I think one of the things of recognizing, as you said, with all of that technology, with all of the opportunity of what's possible of upskilling, it's still humans at the center. How do we ensure that they're unlearning things that are no longer functioning for them? How do we ensure that they've got the mental flexibility to see new opportunities than, we've always done it this way? How do we ensure that we've got the resilience that when something doesn't go right, because we're going to be doing more experiments, we're going to do more things, we can recover quickly and well without that depletion to burnout, and to have that grit and determination that what
Yep.
we're doing matters, right? And so within all of that, you've got the context of requiring high levels of psychological safety,
Yes.
dealing with personal health, stress, impact, and what's the wake, the energy that, when I like the phrase you said, step out to step in. When I come in to
Mhm.
a Zoom, when I come into a session, what am I bringing in other than my viewpoint, what's my frequency, what's my energy, and really putting a call out on that.
Yeah, it's I think you're right. I think any guest that you speak to probably going forward this year is going through a lot of the similar change, and it's definitely challenging, but you're right. We have to approach it kind of we have to approach it with our whole self. Because if we leave things on the side, we're not going to make it. And people, it's sort of, it's not out of ego, but in the function, the HR function, there's an odd dependency on us, um, for silly things like making sure they get, a paid time off approval or some transactional
Yeah.
thing, and the bigger pieces of the coaching and development on all of that. And so we gotta come, we gotta be ready.
And it's interesting, isn't it, where so many of these things go unmeasured and unseen until we see the symptom. So it's a bit
Right.
like our health, right?
Yeah.
There's so many data markers, but we don't go and show up until something's wrong. Similarly, in terms of navigating change, we don't know until something's going wrong, right? It shows up that something's, hitting late. The budget's challenging. We're getting issues of, engagement or performance or something that is a symptom.
Yep.
The earlier diagnosis, what is that data? How do we measure some of those things in this,
Measure.
and I
I
think,
yeah, I do urge, I will say, Ross, I do urge early in career people that are looking at HR as a career, I urge them strongly to take business classes and really have a deep understanding of the P&L. That's probably a whole separate topic with a future guest, but if the as you said about the data is there if you know where to look for it. And most people in traditional HR programs don't necessarily get taught where to look for it. I didn't come with a HR education. I don't even know if they offered it back, when I graduated from college, but it's in the data. And the P&L will tell you over a little bit of time if you're inefficient, if your employees are, yeah, I mean, you can see
performance,
disengagement
engagement,
in the numbers.
retention,
Yes,
these
retention,
things
sales
are,
numbers, all of it.
yeah, they're often the downstream effects of something else, as you mentioned, having the space for root cause, that you can have those candid conversations to, whilst yes, we want to co-elevate, but can we call out things in a humane way?
Right.
And it's, the difference of a question in different environments. We were talking about, how airports can often be triggers for people, right? Of our shadow selves showing up.
Yes.
And if your airport version is that team, that session, that meeting room, that day, it's very unlikely that you'll hear what is intended, because you'll just hear what you want to hear. You're pissed off because of this reason or whatever it is. So how do we make sure we're not creating the horrible airport trigger environment for somebody when they're going through change? I'm exhausted, I'm tired, I've just done this, and now you're asking me this. What the, as opposed to, no, I'm chill, I can take this on, I'm open to learning things, I'm not taking it personally. That takes hard work, and it takes trust across people, right?
I think you just came up with 2025's most relatable metaphor. Congratulations. I'm gonna write something on that for my team and give you full credit to kick off the year, because you're right. It's how do you keep all that outside triggering stimuli, whether it's good or bad. You know, for some of us, we go to an airport and there's the whatever the smell is. There's Auntie Anne's pretzels here in the US where you're like, "Whoop," and then really, so I just let my wellness wander off. And for other people, you know, and then it's the gate, it's all the crazy, weird things that happen and other people. So you're right. It's how do we just, you know, leveled out our responses to that so we can focus on what the root cause is. What's the real challenge? You know, as part of the coaching habit, the Michael Bungay Steiner fabulous book. What's the real challenge here? It's not that that guy is annoying because he's chewing loudly. It's more, what is this?
Yeah,
What's
my
happening
response
here
to
that
that.
allowed me to be annoyed by that guy? So you're right.
And it can be some simple practices, right? Some simple practices to create the space and capacity in oneself that once we understand and aware of that, to be able to get back to a point at which I'm now productive physically and mentally to the task at hand, right? So when I've had a real, you know, bad issue, someone's pissed me off, this has happened. Can I acknowledge? Can I deal? Can I step out to step back in? Can I go, okay, I've recognized I'm in the airport where the guy's just pushed in front of me. Okay, I'm going to step out, step back in, and this is the person I want to be in that session, and allow each other to call it out, allow each other to recognize it and support and say, hey, you know, and we do it with the kids. I remember the grandkids, you know, do you need a timeout? Do you need a timeout right now? You've had a bit too much sugar.
I need a professional timeout. I'm going to go sit in my chair in the corner and
be okay with it, right? And be that is healthy. That's healthy to say, I see it, I support it, and I don't judge or then punish because of that. I actually
just weaken yourself over time if to your point, if we keep allowing those triggers to manifest bigger than what they should be. I mean, we all get triggered, like you said, but it's how we respond. And I think it's so key to be able, and I think that's one of the things we try to build, where we use the logic of the coaching habit to help with development internally. And one of the leaders, emerging leaders, came on a roundtable and said, you know, I've also had to listen more, a lot more, because I would get triggered immediately by the question or the comment, and I would just go "Broop," and not hear anything. So, and I think it's so interesting because it's like this random connection to AI. But what's interesting is that if you allow that all the development that's happening in AI to trigger you, you're like, oh, you know, it's too much, and my job is going to go away. That's the most common thing we hear, right? I'm going to lose my job because of AI. But if you actually let it soak in and you think about it a little bit deeper, don't let it trigger you.
Yeah.
Robots.
That trigger is often then it puts cotton wool in the ears, right? And we don't hear what comes next.
Right. And then you end up with a losing script. You know, there's no good outcome to that game. But if you think about, well, how is it that I harness the AI along with my intellect and my skills to move it forward? And I think that's what a lot of us are thinking about right now, because whether or not I'm at the forefront of using AI to create, you know, Veradigm view or not, it is, you know, all of us, we're navigating massive change right now. Obviously, AI is the
it's a big driver, and it's the interconnected healthy systems of Lisa, healthy systems of Ross, healthy systems of the team, healthy systems of, the organization and then the industry, so that, as we said, we end up not depleted by growth, but actually ready for next.
Ready for next, because you've always got to be ready. It's funny, you never know. And that's one of the things about the pace in a hospitality and restaurant environment. It's fast, and you never know what's going to happen next. I mean, nobody orders off the menu anymore. They want modifiers, right? And that's like what we're doing now is a glorified version of one giant menu modifier, where Ross does not want a cheeseburger anymore. He wants like a hand milked fresh goat cheese. I would like, everything is modified, and it's a challenge to execute, and you just have to.
And that's in every industry, right? We want N of one, something just for me, meds for me, coaching for me, development for me, all of those things. And technology has glimmered the possibility of that. And it's now how we, implement those and compound them. So as we come to a close, there's a couple of pieces. First one, if people want to reach out to you, something that they heard triggered that they wanted to discuss in a little bit more detail or something like that, how do they best get in touch with you if that's something that is interesting? Because I know that you do some other coaching areas and stuff yourself. So that's part one. So maybe just answer that. How do they best reach or get in touch with you, Lisa?
Yeah, probably the fastest is LinkedIn. I've gotten much more disciplined about, if someone gives me a reference of where we met or where they heard me, that helps me immensely. I'm very quick on that. And then I'm happy also to provide my personal email address as well. And a lot of connections are made that way for all of us. And there's a lot of people that I lean on to collaborate and give me thought leadership and coaching. I've heard them on a podcast or met them at a conference, and it's a small world.
It is. And a question that throughout the I did confess actually to my business partner, Mike. I said, the last two podcasts, I don't think I asked that question, because I've been asking the same question at the end for over 140 episodes. And I'd forgotten for a few. And I was like, where was I? I was so engrossed in it. So I've made my noted. And it's related to firsts. And the question is, when was the last time you did something for the first time? And what was it?
Let's see, in 2024, this year, I went to a jungle in Nepal by myself and hung out with elephants and got to feed elephants and touch, like, I don't know what else to say. I traveled alone to Nepal, and for the first time, that was a big trip. The last time I had a friend with me, I was by myself. I went hiking with a guide, obviously, but I had never been that close to an elephant. It was on my bucket list. And every day I wake up thinking about how I can go back.
Wow. Interesting.
So that's been a while. I need to find something else to do now.
It's interesting. As I said, I've asked this question to many people now, and just that arresting response of, oh, that's a tough question. How should I respond? Should I respond in this way, all sorts of things going on our minds. And also just that self-questioning of, when was the last time I did something for the first time?
I almost said roller skating, but I realized when I was a kid, I did that all the time. I went to a 50th birthday party last weekend, and there was roller skating.
Well, it comes to the second part that, for people who've listened to my show for a while, will get this, but those who are listening fresh, another part that I try to encourage people to think of is, for the first time doesn't have to be a unique thing. So how can we take something that we've done many times and treat it with naive mind and naive eyes? So it feels like a first time, so that we're truly listening, we're truly experiencing, and have the beauty in that. So if we walk the dogs every day, how can we treat it as if that was the first time we were walking? If it was roller skating, you did it before, well, what was it like roller skating now? It's different, right? And so just that beauty of treating something, even when it isn't in a jungle seeing elephants for the first time that's on a bucket list, how can we make and bring that joy and that childlike curiosity of those naive eyes and naive mind to something that is every day and treat it like a first, to listen,
Love
to see
that.
how it shows up for us. So that's just a piece and a message I'd like to encourage you and our listeners to journey through life, seeing things with those beautiful naive mind.
No, I love that. Thank you so much for that
All
nugget.
right. It's been an absolute pleasure. This is my first session, first meeting for the year. And it's been a real delight, Lisa. And I can attest to your responsiveness on LinkedIn because that's how we connected through LinkedIn. And it's always a pleasure to expand my network with people. I love to stay in touch, connect you with some other people that I think might be interesting, particularly in your space of healthcare. We do a lot in that area, and see how we can co-elevate together. So thank you so
I
much.
love that. And thank you so much for the outreach. This was my it's my first solo endeavor on something like this. So maybe I should have used this as my first time doing something.
There you go.
I
There
think
you
I
go.
went so far out into my own head, I didn't know I had to think about it. So thank you for the opportunity. It's been a pleasure. And I've got some really good nuggets that I'm gonna take into the new year. And you as well were the first meeting of my new year, and onward. So
Excellent. Thank
thank
you.
you.
Do you have the level of adaptability to survive and thrive the rapid changes ahead? Has your resilience got more comeback than a yo-yo? Do you have the ability to unlearn in order to reskill, upskill and break through? Find out today and uncover your adaptability profile and score, your AQ. Visit AQai.io to gain your personalized report across 15 scientifically validated dimensions of adaptability. For a limited time, enter code PODCAST65 for a complimentary AQME assessment. AQai, transforming the way people, teams and organizations navigate change. Thank you for listening to this episode of Decoding AQ. Please make sure you subscribe on your favorite podcast directory, and we'd love to hear your feedback. Please do leave a review and be sure to tune in next time for more insights from our amazing guests.